Okay, let's start with this. What was the very first thing you did this morning? Seriously, think about it. Did you automatically reach for your phone, maybe hit the snooze button, or grab that first cup of coffee without even, thinking about it? Did you brush your teeth before or after you got dressed? Chances are these actions just happened, right? Almost like you were on autopilot. Well, that invisible force, the quiet architect behind so much of our day-to-day, that's the profound power of habits. And in this deep dive, we're really pulling back the curtain on how habits work, why they're so incredibly powerful, and maybe most importantly, how we can consciously take control of them, even rebuild them if we want to.
Exactly. And our mission today is to dig into some really fascinating sources. We're talking academic studies, executive interviews, some incredible real-life stories. The goal here is to equip you with the knowledge, not just to see your patterns, but to truly understand them. And then, yeah, give you the tools to reshape them if you choose.
All right, let's get into it. The foundation, according to our sources, is this simple three-step loop. Cue, routine, reward.
Mm-hmm. The habit loop.
Yeah. Think about learning to drive. I mean, at first, it's this incredibly complex ballet, right? You're consciously checking mirrors, judging distances, signaling. Every single move needs focus.
Oh, definitely. Total concentration.
But now, probably second nature, the moment you grab your keys, that's the cue, this ancient part of your brain, the basal ganglia, it just takes over. It recognizes the pattern, the habit, and the routine of, say, backing out of your driveway just unfolds automatically.
And that frees up your conscious mind, your gray matter, to worry about other things.
Like whether Jimmy remembered his lunchbox this morning.
Exactly. And what's really remarkable is seeing this loop play out in totally different, sometimes unexpected situations. One of our sources tells this story about an army major in Kufa, Iraq. He was dealing with these recurring riots, right? Couldn't figure out how to stop them reliably. So he starts analyzing videotapes, and he notices this pattern. First, a crowd gathers in a plaza, that's the cue. Then, almost like clockwork, food vendors and spectators show up. It becomes this, vibrant but volatile scene that's the routine.
And the result?
Well, often it escalated into violence, which, for some people involved, was sort of the grim reward or the expected outcome.
Wow. Okay, so how did he use that?
Well, understanding the loop, he tried something different. He persuaded the mayor to keep the food vendors out of the plaza. He disrupted the routine.
Just remove the kebab stands.
Exactly. And often the crowd still gathered, the queue was there, but without the food vendors, the routine changed. The atmosphere didn't build in the same way, and the riots often fizzled out before they started.
That's incredibly practical. It wasn't about direct confrontation, just tweaking the loop.
It shows it's not just theory. Understanding the structure can lead to real-world changes.
Okay, so we have the cue, the routine, the reward. But you mentioned there's more to it. What really makes a habit stick?
Yes. The secret ingredient, you could say, is craving. It's not just getting the reward, it's the anticipation of the reward that really locks that loop in place.
Craving. Okay. How does that work? Well, think about the Pexident story. The toothpaste. Claude Hopkins, this advertising genius, he promised beautiful teeth, that's the reward, and he pointed to tooth film as the cue.
Right, makes sense.
But lots of toothpastes promised clean teeth. Why did Pepsodent become such a huge hit? It was something else, something more subtle.
It was the tingle. That cool, minty, slightly irritating sensation Pepsodent created.
Irritating.
Yeah, the ingredients, mint oil, citric acid, they didn't actually make teeth cleaner, but they gave you this noticeable feeling.
So it felt like it was working.
Exactly. It created a craving for that physical signal, that feeling of clean. People missed the tingle if they used something else. That craving is what brought them back again and again.
That's brilliant, actually. And it makes sense of another story in the sources for Breeze.
Oh yeah, the air freshener. Initial flop, right.
Total flop. Procter & Gamble marketed it as an odor eliminator, but nobody wants to spray something and basically admit, yep, my house smells bad.
Uh-huh. Good point. Awkward.
But then the researchers found something interesting. They studied people using it and found this woman whose house was like immaculate. No bad smells. But she sprayed Febreze everywhere after she finished cleaning.
Why?
As a finishing touch. A signal that cleaning was done. She wasn't eliminating bad smells. She was adding a good smell as a reward for her effort.
So P&G flipped the script.
They did. They added more perfume, changed the tagline to something like cleans life smells, and suddenly they tapped into this craving for a pleasant scent as the reward for cleaning. Boom. Multi-billion-dollar product.
And there's solid science here too.
Yeah.
Wolfram Schultz's monkey experiments, remember those?
Vaguely, yeah. With the juice.
Right. Julio the monkey learned that seeing a shape on screen, the cue, meant he'd get a drop of juice, the reward. His brain activities showed anticipation. But then Schultz messed with the reward. Sometimes he delayed the juice, sometimes he diluted it.
And what happened in the monkey's brain?
A huge spike in activity associated with, well, craving and frustration. That neurological pattern showed the expectation, the craving, was a powerful force. When it wasn't satisfied, it really drove behavior, or at least the feeling behind it.
Okay, that clicks. It explains why we compulsively check email. We crave that little hit of distraction or novelty. Or why exercise becomes habitual. You start craving the feeling afterwards, the accomplishment, the endorphins.
Exactly. It's the anticipation of that feeling that keeps the loop going strong.
So if habits are this powerful loop driven by craving, how do you change a bad one? Just stop.
Well, that's the thing. The sources are pretty clear. You can't really extinguish a bad habit. The pathway is still there in your brain. Trying to just resist often fails.
So what do?
You change it. This is what the research calls the golden rule of habit change. Keep the old cue, deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine.
Replace the middle part?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Substitution, not elimination.
Okay, give me an example. How does that look in practice?
Think about Tony Dungy, the NFL coach. He took over teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were, frankly, terrible. Lots of bad habits on the field.
Right, known for turning teams around.
Exactly. But he didn't try to erase everything the players knew. Instead, he focused on changing their routines in response to specific cues.
Like what?
For his defensive players, for instance, he identified cues, maybe the way an offensive lineman shifted his weight or the angle of his shoulders. Then he drilled new, simple, automatic reactions, new routines designed to achieve the reward they all wanted, sacking the quarterback, making an interception.
So he wasn't asking them to think more, but react differently, automatically.
Precisely. He removed the need for complex decision-making in those split seconds. He built faster, more effective routines onto existing cues and rewards.
That makes sense. What about a more personal example?
Sure. The book talks about Mandy, a student who bit her nails constantly, like until they bled.
Ouch. A tough habit to break.
Very. Her therapist helped her identify the cue. It was often a slight feeling of tension in her fingertips. That was the signal.
Okay, the cue. What was the reward she was craving?
Probably some kind of physical stimulation, maybe a momentary distraction from whatever she was feeling.
So, the golden rule.
They developed a competing response. A new routine. Whenever she felt that tension cue, instead of biting, she was trained to immediately put her hands in her pockets, or grip a pencil, or clench her fist.
Just replace the action.
Replace the action, and then give herself a quick physical sensation that provided a similar reward, like rubbing her arm or knuckles quickly. It addressed the underlying urge.
Keep the cue, substitute the routine, deliver a similar reward.
That's the formula, and it worked for Mandy.
So how could someone listening apply this? Say, someone who snacks too much at their desk.
Well, first step, identify the cue. Is it 3 p.m. every day? Is it finishing a specific task? Is it feeling stressed?
And then the reward. What are they really craving?
Exactly. Is it hunger? Or is it boredom? A need for a break, maybe just oral fixation. If the craving is, say, for a distraction or a break, the new routine isn't a cookie.
It could be.
Taking a quick walk around the office, chatting with a coworker for 5 minutes, doing some quick stretches. Something that satisfies that craving for a break, using the same cue, but with a different, healthier routine.
So it's about diagnosing the loop first. Cue, routine, reward, and especially that craving.
That's the core of it. Understand the loop, then intervene strategically.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Some habits, the sources say, are keystone habits.
These are powerful.
Yeah, small changes that seem minor but somehow trigger these huge ripple effects, changing loads of other patterns.
Absolutely. Paul O'Neill at Alcoa is the classic example. He takes over as CEO, the aluminum company is struggling, Wall Street wants to hear about profits.
And what does he talk about in his first speech?
Worker safety. Just safety, nothing else. The investors were baffled, some even panicked.
Seemed completely off topic for a CEO focused on the bottom line.
Right. But O'Neill was adamant. She focused relentlessly on reducing injuries. And what happened? To improve safety, they had to understand why injuries happened. If molten metal splashing caused burns, they redesigned the pouring systems. That reduced injuries, yes, but it also turned out to reduce waste, saving money.
An unexpected side effect.
Exactly. If machines broke down and injured workers, they fixed or replaced the machines. That improved safety, but also improved product quality and efficiency. Communication had to improve drastically to report potential hazards quickly that improved overall operations.
So focusing on that one keystone habit, safety, forced changes across the entire company culture and process.
Transformed it. It even changed small things, like they painted over the reserved parking spots for executives. The message became, everyone's responsible, everyone matters. Safety became the lever that remade Alcoa's broader habits.
It's amazing how one thing can cascade. Does this apply to individuals too?
Definitely. Look at Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. His coach, Bob Bowman, knew raw talent wasn't enough. He instilled keystone habits.
Like what? More lax?
Not just physical, mental habits. Bowman had Phelps practice visualization, his videotape. Twice a day, every day, Phelps would mentally rehearse his perfect race, start to finish, visualizing every stroke, every turn, the feel of the water.
Until it was automatic.
Until it was rote, as Phelps described it. This wasn't just about swimming. It became a keystone habit for focus, relaxation, and handling pressure.
And did it work under pressure?
Famously, yes. In the Beijing Olympics, his goggles filled with water during the 200-meter butterfly final. He couldn't see a thing.
Disaster for a swimmer.
Should have been. But Phelps stayed calm. He just started counting his strokes, relying on the rhythm he'd ingrained through that visualization habit. He knew exactly how many strokes it took per lap, and he won the gold medal blind.
Wow. That mental routine, that keystone habit saved him.
It gave him an anchor in chaos.
And these keystone habits don't have to be huge, right? The sources mention smaller things.
Absolutely. Studies show things like families who regularly eat dinner together that seems to correlate with kids having better homework skills, more emotional control, better grades.
Just having dinner.
It's likely the routine, the communication, the structure that acts as a keystone. Same with making your bed every morning. Some studies link it to better productivity, a stronger sense of well-being, even better budgeting skills.
Making your bed leads to better budgeting. That seems like a stretch.
Well, the idea is that these small wins, these demonstrations of discipline in one area, can spill over, creating a sense of order and control that influences other parts of your life. They build momentum.
Okay, that makes more sense. Small wins building broader change, which kind of leads us to willpower, doesn't it? We often think of it as this fixed thing. You either have it or you don't.
Right. The strong-willed versus the weak-willed. But the research suggests it's more like a muscle.
A muscle. How so?
Well, you know the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment. Kids who could resist eating one marshmallow to get two later on often did better in life. That showed delayed gratification matters.
Sure, I remember that one.
But later research, like Mark Miravan's experiments, added a twist. He'd have students exert willpower on one task, like resisting tempting cookies while staring at boring radishes.
Uh-huh. Cruel.
Right. Then, afterwards, he'd give him a difficult, actually impossible puzzle to solve. And the students who'd used up their willpower resisting the cookies, they gave up on the puzzle much faster than those who only had to resist the radishes, or a control group.
So resisting the cookies tired out their willpower.
Exactly, like a muscle gets fatigued after exertion. Willpower seems to be a finite resource that can be depleted in the short term.
Okay, if willpower gets tired, how does an organization like Starbucks manage it? They take people like Travis, who the book mentions, high school dropout, tough background, struggled with emotions, and train them to handle stressful situations and manage stores.
That's a great question. Starbucks essentially turns self-discipline into an organizational habit. They don't just rely on individual willpower. They provide routines.
Like the LAT method.
Precisely. Listen, acknowledge, take action, thank, explain. It's a pre-programmed routine, a habit loop, for dealing with angry or upset customers. When customer starts yelling the cue, the employee has a clear routine to follow, leading to a hopefully calmer situation, the reward. It reduces the need for the employee to draw heavily on their own depleted willpower in that stressful moment.
It gives them a script, a pathway.
Exactly. And crucially, Muravan also found that willpower is less taxing when people feel a sense of control or autonomy.
How does that fit in?
Well, another study showed factory workers who were given more autonomy over their schedules, even small choices, saw productivity increase and stayed on task longer. Feeling forced depletes willpower faster.
So Starbucks gives routines, but also maybe empowers employees in other ways.
Plausibly, yes. And Travis, the employee mentioned, he learned those routines. Later, when dealing with a difficult nurse regarding his sick father, he didn't lose his temper. He calmly used the same principles he learned at Starbucks, listening, acknowledging, explaining, to plead his case effectively. The training became a life skill.
The organizational habit became a personal one.
And interestingly, Howard Schultz, the CEO, even said his own drive came partly from his mother constantly asking him questions as a kid, which trained him in the habit of setting goals and planning. It starts early.
Fascinating. But habits aren't always good, right? What about when organizational habits go wrong?
Oh, absolutely. When they become dysfunctional, the consequences can be devastating. The sources highlight some really sobering examples.
Like the Rhode Island hospital case, that was shocking.
Yeah, multiple instances of surgeons operating on the wrong side of a patient's body, wrong knee, wrong side of the brain. Just horrifying.
And it wasn't necessarily lack of skill, right? It was the system.
It was the ingrained dysfunctional habits. Things like turf wars between surgeons and nurses, where nurses felt intimidated or ignored if they tried to speak up. A lack of clear, enforced checklists. Communication breakdowns were just part of the accepted, albeit broken, routine.
The habits prevented safety checks.
Effectively, yes. Then there's the King's Cross underground fire in London. 31 people died.
And again, not one single cause, but habits.
A series of disastrous habits rooted in strict departmental silos. A ticket collector saw a burning tissue, but didn't report it because fire wasn't his job. The station manager minimized the risk. The safety inspector didn't call the fire brigade immediately because policy said only if it was absolutely necessary. Nobody knew how to use the sprinkler system because it wasn't their purview.
Each person followed their ingrained departmental routine, and the collective result was catastrophe.
It was a systemic failure driven by bad organizational habits. No one felt empowered or responsible for stepping outside their narrow lane.
So how on earth do you change habits that are that deeply embedded, especially when they're invisible or just the way things are done?
Often, unfortunately, it takes a crisis.
Yeah.
Our sources suggest that crises act like earthquakes for organizational habits. They shake everything up, make the previously rigid patterns suddenly malleable.
They create an opening.
Exactly. An opportunity for leaders like O'Neill after Alcoa's struggles, or Dungy with a failing team, or Howard Schultz rebuilding Starbucks to step in and consciously redesign those patterns. Rahm Emanuel's famous line comes to mind: "You never want a serious crisis to go to waste."
So Rhode Island Hospital, after the surgeries, the fines, the public outcry, that was their crisis.
That was their crisis, and it forced change. They implemented mandatory safety checklists, computerized systems, team briefings. Crucially, they changed the culture to empower nurses to speak up, to challenge anyone, even senior surgeons, if they saw a risk. The crisis broke the old habits and allowed new, safer ones to be built.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, but still on this theme of hidden influence. You mentioned companies using habits. How far does that go? Are they actually like predicting our habits?
Oh, absolutely, and sometimes with startling accuracy.
Yeah.
Get this. Target, the retailer, hired a statistician named Andrew Pohl.
Okay.
Pohl figured out how to predict if a customer was pregnant often before her family knew, just by analyzing changes in her buying habits.
Seriously, how?
He noticed pregnant women often started buying specific things around the same time, like unscented lotion, cotton balls, supplements like magnesium. He built an algorithm that assigned a pregnancy prediction score based on purchasing patterns.
Wow. And did Target do with this score?
They started sending targeted coupons for baby items to women who scored highly.
That sounds potentially awkward.
It was. The famous story is the angry father calling Target, demanding to know why his high school daughter was getting coupons for cribs and baby clothes. Turns out, Target knew she was pregnant before he did.
Yikes. Okay, that's a PR nightmare.
Right. So Target didn't stop predicting, but they got smarter about using the predictions. They started camouflaging the baby ads.
Camouflaging.
Yeah, instead of sending a booklet of only baby stuff, they'd mix in the baby coupons with ads for completely random things: lawnmowers, wine glasses, clothes. It made the targeting seem accidental, less creepy. But the relevant coupons were still there, influencing behavior subtly.
Sneaky. But effective, I bet.
Very. And it's not just retail. The music industry does something similar by leveraging familiarity.
How so?
Our brains, it turns out, like things that sound familiar. We crave patterns we recognize. A new song has a better chance of becoming a hit, becoming sticky, if it incorporates familiar structures or sounds, even if it's innovative overall.
So totally new sounds struggle.
Often, yeah. The example given is Outkast's "Hey Ya." Believe it or not, it initially flopped on the radio.
Hey, ah, flopped is huge.
Eventually. But at first it was too different, too unfamiliar for listeners and programmers. DJs finally made it a hit by sandwiching it.
Sandwiching.
Playing it between two very popular, very familiar hits. That context made the strangeness of "Hey Ya" less jarring, more acceptable. They made the unfamiliar feel familiar by association.
That's fascinating. Using existing habits or preferences to introduce something new?
Governments have even done it. During World War II, the U.S. government wanted people to eat organ meats, liver, kidneys, heart, because muscle meats were needed for the troops.
Ugh, not exactly popular cuts.
Not at all. Direct campaigns failed. So they tried camouflage. They encouraged housewives to slip liver into meatloaf, or present heart thinly sliced and call it variety meat, or even frame it like a new kind of steak. They dressed up the unfamiliar in familiar packaging.
And it worked better.
Much better than just saying eat more liver. Later campaigns like 5 a day for fruits and vegetables often struggled because they didn't always integrate into existing habits or cravings as effectively.
So the takeaway is companies, maybe even governments, are constantly trying to shape our behavior by linking new things to our existing habits and preferences.
It seems that way. They make the unfamiliar feel familiar, tap into existing cravings, often in ways we don't even notice.
Which brings us to maybe the biggest scale, social habits. Habits aren't just individual, are they? They shape whole communities, even movements.
Absolutely. They're profoundly social. Think about the Montgomery bus boycott. It wasn't just Rosa Parks acting alone.
Right, she was part of a community.
Exactly. Her arrest immediately activated her close friends, her church groups, what sociologists call strong ties, people who felt a personal obligation to help her. That was the first phase.
But a boycott needs more than just close friends.
It does. And that's where weak ties come, in a concept from Mark Granovetter. The boycott spread through the wider community, through acquaintances, neighbors, colleagues. People participated partly due to peer pressure, the social habit of solidarity. Not participating meant losing standing in the community.
So strong ties for the initial spark, weak ties for the spread.
That's a big part of it. But then Martin Luther King Jr. did something crucial. He transformed the protest. He didn't just organize. He gave participants a new sense of identity, rooted in nonviolence, Christian love, a moral purpose. He helped create new shared habits of protest and belief.
Turning participants into leaders themselves.
Exactly. He fostered new social habits that sustained the movement long term.
We see this power of community belief in other places too, right? Like Alcoholics Anonymous.
AA is a powerful example. Yes, it provides new routines to replace drinking, like going to meetings, calling a sponsor. That fits the golden rule.
But what makes it stick for so many?
The sources argue it's often belief. Belief that the program works, belief in a higher power, however conceived, or even just belief in oneself to change. And that belief is cultivated and strengthened within the community.
Being around others who've succeeded makes it seem possible.
It makes it easier to suspend disbelief, to borrow hope. There's a story about a man named John, new to AA, cynical. His sponsor just asked him to help put away chairs after a meeting. That simple act of participation, of service within the group, was his first step towards building the belief he needed.
Small actions building belief within the social context.
Right, and Rick Warren's Saddleback Church used a similar principle for growth. They didn't just focus on huge Sunday services.
They use small groups, right?
Exactly. Home-based small groups became central. They fostered those strong ties, integrated faith into daily social interactions, and empowered members to lead and support each other. It made faith a distributed, community-driven habit. Even back to Tony Dungy's Colts after his son tragically died during the season, the team didn't collapse. They drew on their shared habits, their community, and a collective belief that they could overcome adversity together. That belief, that social habit of resilience, arguably propelled them to win the Super Bowl that year.
Belief, community, shared routines. It's clear habits operate on so many levels, which I guess leads us to a final, maybe tricky question about responsibility.
Yeah, this is where it gets ethically complex.
They have these powerful habits, sometimes driving us unconsciously. So where does responsibility lie? The sources bring up two contrasting legal cases.
Kenneth Parks and Angie Bachman. Very different outcomes.
Parks drove miles, killed his mother-in-law, injured his father-in-law, but was acquitted. Why?
Because the defense successfully argued he was sleepwalking. His actions were deemed the result of unconscious habit patterns, not conscious choice.
Yeah.
He wasn't held responsible.
Okay. Then there's Angie Bachman, a housewife who developed a severe gambling addiction, racked up huge debts with a casino.
Right. She argued the casino knew she was an addict, preyed on her habit, even offered her more incentives to keep gambling. Neurologically, gambling addicts' brains react to near misses almost like wins, creating powerful cravings. She felt completely out of control.
But she was held responsible for her debts, right? The court didn't accept the addiction as removing her responsibility.
Correct. She was held liable.
So one person absolved due to unconscious habit, another held responsible despite feeling powerless over an addictive habit. Is that fair? Where do we draw the line?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sources don't give an easy answer, but they strongly suggest something provocative,
Which is?
that habits, even deeply ingrained ones, even addictions, are not immutable destiny. Once we become aware of how they work the loop, the craving we gain the capacity to change them. The potential for choice emerges.
Awareness creates the possibility of choice.
That seems to be the implication. And it leads to the final, quite inspiring story of William James.
The psychologist we mentioned earlier.
Yes, as a young man, he was plagued by depression, philosophical doubts about free will. He felt trapped. But then he made a decision.
What did he do?
He decided to conduct an experiment for 1 year. He would simply choose to believe that he had free will, that he could control his thoughts and actions. He would act as if change was possible.
He chose to believe in his own agency.
He called it his first act of free will. And that decision, that commitment to acting as if he had control, fundamentally changed his perspective, pulled him out of his despair, and arguably launched his incredibly influential career exploring the very nature of habit and consciousness.
So the ultimate message here is what?
That understanding is power. By learning about the cue routine reward loop, identifying your specific cravings, finding those keystone habits, working on your willpower like a muscle, and maybe most importantly, leaning on social support and belief. You gain the tools
The tools to choose your habit.
to understand them and then, yes, to consciously rebuild them in ways that serve you better. It's not always easy, but the potential is there. Change is possible.
A powerful realization. And definitely a journey of continuous discovery.